Move on. Okay, so welcome back to the Pack Mentality podcast with me, Paul Garrigan. This is episode 13, and today we have got a very special guest on that I've been trying to pin down for some time, and we both have just haven't had the right timing to get this podcast done. It's been probably about a year in the making, not last year, I think. And yeah, basically, we've got an amazing guest, and for me, a man who I do really honour in terms of what he does as a professional athlete and an MMA fighter, and also he owns a gym in Liverpool called Aspire. So today we've got on Dean Garnett. Dean, welcome to the podcast, mate.
What's happening, mate? How are we?
Good, mate. Good. So what I usually like to do, Dean, is I usually like to have a little bit of a check-in first, mate, just to see what's been happening. I know that you had a fight lined up last week that fell through. So I'd just like a little bit of a check-in, mate, of what's been alive for you the past couple of weeks before we really roll into the podcast.
Sounds good.
Okay, so yeah, what's been happening then, mate, the past few weeks? Let me know.
To be honest, mate, I should have been sitting here on the back of a world title win on Saturday, but it didn't quite happen. And I'm just hoping it was for a particular reason. You know, I like to believe sometimes, you know, there's a plan for us. So
yeah,
Saturday I was meant to fight in Béziers in the south of France on a promotion called Hexagon, but unstable weather rained it off, and then it turned out it wasn't even raining. It just had a bad forecast for the weekend.
yeah,
But Saturday was actually amazing weather, so been a little bit down and frustrated about that. But the fight's been rescheduled for 8 weeks' time, and
yeah,
I've got a couple of extra reassurances from the promotion. My fight will be relocated if I have any of the same issues. It's because it's in a quite spectacular venue. It's a giant bull ring basically. So yeah, that was meant to happen Saturday. It never. But like you say, mate, nothing I can do about that. Just gotta work on what I can control and.
Little bit of a setback, mate. Was you doing all the diet, mate, and all that type of stuff as well?
Everything, mate. Yeah, 12 weeks really. I put a lot of me life on hold. You know, take little bits of energy away from the other projects that I'll talk about today, just to obviously be all in on my fight. It was a 5-round fight against a really decent opponent from Brazil. So you know, one of them, mate. But 8 weeks I'll be back, and I'm gonna get that world title.
Yeah, amazing, mate. I'm sure you will. I think I asked you last time, mate, to send me a link. Definitely let me know what it's on. What was that on, Dean, as well?
It's on Design. Yeah, Hexagon. Design, yeah, Design.
Brilliant. Okay.
So you can watch it there.
Yeah, we'll check in again before then, mate, definitely.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So basically, Dean, you know, the reason I've asked you on the podcast is obviously because of what you do. You know, you're a professional athlete, you're a fighting man. And also, you know, I want to know your story of how you've come to be doing what you're doing in this city as a man. You know, you've got an amazing gym that you've set up, and you're producing lots of fighters. And also, I know about the college that you do. We actually worked with one of your partner organisations not long ago in Anfield Boxing Club. They do like a similar, is it like a BTEC, isn't it, in sport?
Yeah, be a BTEC, yeah.
So we done like a personal development course with them. We went down with about 12 to 14 of the lads, I think there was. And that, you know, was received really well. Just getting young men basically engaged in some of the work I do. Obviously, you know, I'm a men's coach, so I'm very much invested in that type of work. That's my passion. So I'm sure that we'll hopefully be linking up with you also in the future, mate, to time to get down to Aspire. And we will also be touching on, mate, just some of your theories. I think the first time I heard you, Dean, it was on a podcast. And it was talking about, you know, certain theories that definitely some of them aligned with me. Some of them I'd like to pressure on as well, just in terms of like how you can help me understand them beliefs within myself as well. Because I'm very much, you know, I wouldn't say I sit on the fence, but we're very aligned in certain ways in what you think in terms of how we run as a society and as a collective. I'm very big onto like how we operate and like, you know, from a collective trauma point of view. How certain systems are operating in the world, certainly the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry, and how we've been governed as people. So I'd like to touch on them sort of topics as well, because I know that you hold a lot of knowledge on them. So are you up for that?
Yeah, mate, I'm up for anything.
Brilliant. Okay. So I like to always start the podcast with starting really on your life. So starting from like your earliest childhood memory, letting us know where you're from, and then taking us from there, what family life was like, and then how you basically, went from boyhood to manhood, if you like, how that transition was for you. So starting out, maybe just your earliest memory, mate.
Yeah, my earliest memory, good question. You know what? It's actually a memory in Australia. I spent 4 years as a young kid in Australia with my family. So I'm an Aussie citizen as well. Me three siblings are all based over there now. I'm the only one of the four of us left here. I've got a brother, two sisters. But yeah, I can actually remember being a little kid and being on the beach and being on my bike. Must have been 3 or something. But then we came back to England, Liverpool, where my mum obviously wanted to be closer to her family. So I grew up on a council estate in Speke. And like a lot of kids, I wouldn't say I had everything, but you know, me ma worked hard to provide what she could for us. My half fella's a bit of a strange one. I'll talk about him a little bit today, but he's I'll call him old fashioned, and he certainly had some old fashioned values, and you know, he likes a bevy, and you know, there was a lot of domestic violence in my household growing up, and abuse, physical abuse, in terms of just, you know, maybe a little bit of bullying going on from the male in the household. So I haven't really had a relationship with my half for the past like 15 years or whatever it is, just because I just, you know, those memories, I'd say that there was definitely a lot of trauma for me as a young man. And there was a period in my life, mate, where I was just lost completely. That was from about 15 to about 20. And, you know, that was a period where I lived with grandparents because of some of the things that had happened with me and my half fella. And it was around
that's such
20.
an important time, Dean. Sorry, that's such an important time. 15. I feel certainly like we're working with men. Like my lad now is 16, but when they're transitioning, sort of at that point, the transition from boyhood to manhood, I feel it's around that age we start like finding our way as young men. And if we haven't got that sort of compass point, which it sounds like you might have had at that time in your life with your dad, then you can certainly, young men, mate, which I feel we see a lot now in this city. Young men can feel very lost. And they can lose like we need sort of, we look up to the male figures in our life. It's sort of like our compass point and our sense of directions for how to navigate masculinity and manhood. Yeah, like I'm big on like, male initiations, Dean, and bringing Buddha into masculinity in the right way, which in this part of the world, Dean, we don't have that. Like, you used to your way to be initiated into masculinity, if you like, would be to have a pint, or be to lose your virginity, or to have drugs, and to do all these different things. And that's how men, I feel now in society, are unconsciously seeking that initiation, but it's in a toxic manner, if you like, that it's actually become normal and acceptable, which it's actually probably abnormal conditions. That makes sense, that being raised in, that then that's getting made to be a social norm. Does that make sense?
Well, to be honest, like I know my half fella's excuse is that's what his dad done, and I just think like, you know, just because someone else was a bit abusive or gave you a bad, like I think your best role models in life are the negative ones. You know, you can have 5 or 6 people whose behaviour you're trying to imitate for the right reasons, but you can also learn a lot from. And this isn't just in family relationships. This is in professional work, whatever relationships. So, yeah, I think, you know, your negative role models can sometimes be your most powerful for changing your behaviour, or at least making you self-reflect on your own behaviour and being more accountable to yourself. But I don't regret any of those experiences. I certainly wish my mom might have had a bit of a better time when we were kids, but I certainly don't regret any of it, because I feel like it's made me the man I am today, and it was all part of my journey. And I think that's probably what led me to fighting. You know what I mean? As a young kid growing up, I always used to say, like, as soon as I'm big enough, I'm gonna have to get my half of the back. And that was something I talked about as an 8-year-old and 9-year-old to me granddad and me uncles on my mum's side, like, don't worry when I'm 15. And I did. I followed through with it when I was 15. You know what I mean? I actually I said to my mom, tonight, I'm going to get him back. And she was like, you know, don't dare. And it was actually Valentine's Day. And I went out and had the queues in Walton at the time. And when I had a few bevies with me mate just to get myself riled up, and when he came home, I just let it all out. The last 15 years of seeing him, be a bit abusive and be a bit of a bully to me man, and I was like, it's his turn to get it from me. And me and him had a massive fight and moved out the house and lived with me nan for a bit. And I was really academically performing very high as a young man, but that was because my father would have me sitting in revising, copying textbooks out, and like soon as he was then removed out the situation, my education went the other way, and I started to like sort of underperform on my A levels, and ended up doing degrees, and I started accountancy, but it didn't align with me. My brother does it, and he's probably the good role model I've had in my life. My older brother Floyd,
Yeah.
he's got a decent job in accountancy. My father was really trying to push me towards that, but it just, I don't know, didn't suit me. And I ended up leaving that and going full time with MMA. And a few years later, I ended up going back to university to study coaching because I'd found something I was passionate about, because it gave me a sense of purpose,
Yeah.
bigger than earning a living. You know what I mean? And I think that's like one of the big things young men are lacking. Obviously, we talked about good male role models and
Mm.
that good example of masculinity, but
Mm.
also a sense of purpose. I think that's why the mental health crisis now for men is so bad,
Yeah.
because it's like this society wants us to just work
Yeah.
50 hours a week, go home, go to bed, get up, go back to work, come out, collect the kids from
Mm.
whatever institution's minding them while you're at work all day, and then put the telly on and feed them, go back to bed and get up and do it again. And
Yeah.
where's you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
So
given them like that sort of direction, Dean, that they haven't got. And with that direction they have of men in their life, that in itself, I think, would breed a sense of purpose, because they would be given that sort of initiation to go, right, you need to be doing something. What is it you want to do? Let's find what you're good at. Let's channel all that energy you've got as a young man into what you want to go and do. And I feel at the same time, Dean, there's like with masculinity, I think there's like a bit of an identity crisis happening, because men aren't needed in the same way they used to be. We used to go
definitely,
out as hunter food gatherers, and we'd go out and we'd conquer, we'd get the food, we'd do all these different things. And then it was like the man would go to work, the woman would stay at home and look after the kids. Now women are working as well. So now
yeah,
women don't need us to do that protective, all conquering male role model that we used to be, where we'd conquer. And now women are doing that for themselves. So I feel there's like an identity crisis with how men are actually meant to operate in the world. And we're actually being called to have more depth, I think, Dean. Like, we're being made to feel a lot more than we've ever felt, which is a good thing. I think that's happening if we can spin it in a good way. That actually what's happening with men, we've got to try and spin it into a positive, that there is actually something going on and there's something wrong with men. Because when you look at jail and you look at even suicide rates, Dean, in men, I think every 4 and 5 people in jail is a man. And I think, in suicide rates, mate, I think it's like 80% of suicides are men. Like, there's definitely something going on with masculinity, but that definitely ties in with what you're saying about how children are being raised. Like, we haven't got enough time to raise our kids sometimes, because you've got 50, you're having to work 50-hour weeks. Your kids are glued to a screen all day. That is absolutely going to have an effect on how they grow up, isn't it?
yeah. I'm a big believer that this is all by design, by the way.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a larger part of an attack on the family unit, the traditional family unit. And I think
Mm.
there's many facets to this attack, but the big one is, you know, we see feminism and masculinity. I feel like with feminism, it's like, the ideology is like women are better served working and pursuing careers. What, staying at home and raising a family and like doing that for your husband's a bad thing. Now it's like go and get a job, get a career, but that makes it harder for people to raise families. And I
Mm.
think also from a male's point of view, you talked about it there, the hunter gatherer. You go back 50 years, a man could get a job fairly easily, a decent job, and provide for a family without his wife having to work or his partner. They could stay home and raise kids. And I feel
Mm.
like over time, this cost of living crisis, again, another manufactured crisis, is all part of this, putting strain on the family economically so they can't thrive. And your kids end up being glued to a screen or being raised by someone else, essentially being raised by the state. I feel sorry because I'm really fortunate about the lifestyle I've got. I get up on some days, we get ready. My girlfriend does work 3.5 days a week in a job she enjoys. So those days I'm fortunate to take the baby to work. I've got an 18-month-old daughter. She comes to the gym with me. She gets to play with everyone in the gym. It's just, she loves being there. But some people, unfortunately, have to get up in the morning, drop the kids off at nursery, pick them up at 5, 6 o'clock. My daughter's in bed at 7. So if I was doing that, if I was going to work for till 6, 7 p.m., I wouldn't even see her. I could go Monday to Thursday without even seeing her.
Yeah.
I just think, like, what, are you going to work to provide for a family, or are you going to work to chase money in a career? What is the money for? What's the career for?
Yeah.
Isn't it so you can raise a family?
Yeah.
So
And
that's
I think
kind of...
Yeah, there's, for me, Dean, there's no, there's definitely like a crossover between women working a hell of a lot more, the family dynamic, being pressed and pressured, if you like, and the rise of like ADHD in children and the rise of all these different things that are happening. Like ADHD, for me, I follow, a physician called Gabor Mate, and he talks a lot about ADHD in children, but he talks about that being an effect of trauma. So how our children not having that connection with their parents and being attached to their parents in a way that they're unable to hold their attention to a certain level because they're having to zone out. If you're brought up, if you like, in a family dynamic team where you were brought up, if you like, where there's chaos in the house, if you're unable to regulate your emotions and stay safe within your nervous system, then the best thing you can do in that moment is zone out. But your attention can never be present because it's too hard to be present in that moment. And then if your parents are never present and you're being raised by somebody else, that's being raised in unnatural conditions. We're not meant to be raised in them ways. So I think we're seeing normal traits happening in a society that's living abnormally. That makes sense. Yeah.
We're normalizing the abnormalities, aren't we? They become normalized, increasingly normalized. And again, like I'm a big believer you can have, a trauma that can affect you in the ways you've just talked about cognitively for young kids. And I'm also a big believer that the trauma isn't just emotional or mental. There's physical traumas that we're putting our children through medical procedures, through food groups, causing inflammation in the body. I think a lot of these neurological development issues are linked to a combination, again, of trauma, poor diet, different pharmaceutical products like vaccinations, which obviously I talked a lot about from about 2016 onwards. I'm glad I don't anymore because it was taxing me emotionally a little bit to do the work I did on that, but it was just something that I felt like I had to get out to the world. So yeah, mate,
even testosterone levels in men, like that's something like, I'll be honest, I'm quite open about like my own life experience. Like when I was young, probably about the age of 20, 21, I was on anabolic steroids. So I took them for like 3, 4 years. I was in like, a weightlifting gym. I wasn't competing, fighting or nothing like that. It's more just to look better because of the way I felt about myself, if you like. Now, that had an effect on obviously my testosterone levels. But what I see even with medications, what happened to me 5 years ago, I went on something called SSRIs because I was struggling really badly mentally. So the first thing that happened to me is I went to the doctors and they just straight away said, well, we'll give you some medication. They didn't once ask me what had happened in my life, why I was the way I was. I'm living a stressful life is, giving me some tools, techniques to regulate myself mentally. And basically, I went and got a testosterone testing not too long after coming off the SSRIs. Now, they lowered my testosterone levels. But when I was taking them, I said to the doctor, obviously, I've taken anabolic steroids in the past. Will these have an effect on my testosterone? And I thought that they might. But the doctor said, no, they don't affect testosterone levels. Now, when I went and got a test done, they did affect my testosterone levels. And the more I researched into it, my testosterone levels, it's normal when you're on SSRIs as a man for them to be lowered. But then there was a host of other side effects that can happen with SSRIs, like with your gut and stuff like that, because it's affecting serotonin in the body. Now, for me, I why do we need to have a tablet, if you like, that is then going to create another problem that then you need another tablet? And I'm not dismissing SSRIs here. I think sometimes medication is needed for people there. I think there is a place for the pharmaceutical industry with the right intentions. But for me, sometimes there's the wrong intentions maybe driving things where it becomes money over lives.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Total agreement, mate. Now, this is one of them things I could probably talk now about this for like 2 hours straight without even taking a break. But firstly, mate, one point I'd love to touch on, because it's massive at the moment, and I think it's quite a sinister agenda against our children. And you talked there about testosterone being low, or you using anabolic steroids, as a younger man. And if you look at the testosterone levels in European males from the 1960s, it's a steady, I'd say it's a rapid decline in testosterone levels. Now, this can have so many impacts on society. Firstly, obviously, when your testosterone's low as a man, it can have multiple different health effects on your body, your mental state. There's so much to do with testosterone in males. And again, like, you think about, in my opinion, there's an agenda to make us docile and easy to control. And I think that's a big part of it. And when the men are emasculated, the women become more masculinated. And we're seeing that in society now. And we're seeing this massive explosion in this gender ideology. I'll call it critical gender, or radical gender ideology. We're seeing a lot of that at the moment. And, people saying sex and gender aren't the same thing. And I think, like, what sort of effects this can have on young people when we live in a society, as you said, where there's already a massive identity crisis. And we're seeing a massive increase in what we talked about before, people who are, got various, the neurodivergent, we call them now. And those type of people are more susceptible, to having mental health problems, or being sucked in through a social contagion into these, new things that these new fads. Like, you go back to the 90s and, these young people were just gay, but now we're transing them. Now we're getting them at 14 to take puberty blockers. What? Blocking puberty? If you go and look at this, there's no studies on blocking kids' puberty. But now, maybe not so much in the UK, but it's coming here. This will come here soon, I promise you. But in Canada and America, if you've got a 12-year-old who wants to go on puberty blockers and you say no, you run the risk of having that child taken from you, because, this is apparently gender affirming care.
Yeah.
So I just think that's a massive thing at the minute that I'm seeing, and I'm seeing it so big with the young kids. That is going to just blow up the mental health crisis.
And I think when you look at that, Dean, what you're saying, I don't know if you've heard of, you definitely will have heard of, like, ACEs, like adverse childhood experiences. And, when you're looking at people with mental health conditions, with all of these different type of neurological, neurophysiological, psychosomatic conditions, all these things that people are having when they reach adulthood, if you like, if they even get to that stage in their life without any effect, that comes down to, if you scored it on the ACEs program, where they would be. A lot of these children are suffering with adverse childhood experiences when they're being brought up. Now, an adverse childhood experience for me is if your mum and dad are working 50 hours a week and you haven't got contact, love and care, and contact, hugs, affection, safety, a container where you can be held as a young child. If we haven't got that, that is one of our most primary needs. We need connection and belonging and safety. And that is something that is massively being missed, which I think has a massive effect, which creates in itself being trauma. But I'm not maybe talking about trauma as in, like, we might have seen abuse, or we might have seen, a big event happen in our lives. I'm more talking about the incremental steps of trauma that happen, which would be your mum not being there when you needed her, your dad not being there when you needed them, you not being guided into masculinity, that you then get attached more to your mates in the outside world, or even worse, substances and phones. Where we're not getting any of that connection.
Yeah. No, mate, I've seen stuff about, like, how the pathways in the brain develop in children who are denied the physical contact and connection they need. So, as you say, that's not them seeing abuse, that's them missing out on something, and then it having an effect on the brain development. So, 100% aligned with your perspective on this, mate. Yeah, definitely.
And I don't think so much I think what we do need, I think the world is hyper masculine. I would say it's more on the side of masculinity that is not mature masculinity, and it's not conscious masculinity. It's actually ego-driven, rather than creating like internal ecosystems within ourselves first, within our families, within our communities, within our businesses. It's very ego-driven, of like competition, win at all costs, dog eat dog world mentality. Now, if you look at like the feminine, if you like, and the feminine nature, that's nurturing, that's loving, that's caring. That's, if we had more of a feminine nature within society, not a masculine feminine, but a feminine, like a bit of a softening that happened where we actually cared more for each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel that would help, like if we had more women operating in that way. I think it's needed. And also men to be more attuned to their own feminine nature at the same time, without losing that masculine core.
No, I mean, I probably agree with you on this, but I'd probably word it a bit different. For me, it's not that it's over masculinated the world today. I just think it's all about balance. It's yin and yang. It's a divine duality of positive and negative, the male and female. It's the sun and the moon. The sun rises every morning. What does your genitals do every morning when you wake up, mate? You wake up with a wood, don't you? It's the sun rising every day. The female menstrual cycle lasts a month. What is the moon phase? So I actually believe this ties in to so many things within the realm that we live in, you know, even as much as astrotheology. So I think it's more that it's out of balance. It's not that it's toxic or there's too much masculinity. It's just it's out of balance for all these different reasons we talked about today, like, you know, the family unit, you know, chemicals. There's so many things bringing it out of balance, and I think that's what's having this effect. And I can go back to being a 19-year-old lad and getting into MMA because I want to be a tough guy, and that is that sense of masculinity you're talking about there. But that's, again, through me lack of purpose and through me lack of identity, and, you know, thinking at that time in my life, you know, I needed to have a lot of money one day to be happy, and that was my purpose, to amass wealth, so I could then buy a house and buy myself a Bosch watch and a Bosch car. Whereas now I have a totally 180 perspective. Now it's about, I want to spend time and engage with my daughter and my girlfriend, and what sort of things can we do outside of me being in work that's meaningful. You know, it might be something as simple as having an allotment and growing some veg. To me, that's time where I can spend time with my family outdoors, but essentially we're also growing food, and that's a skill I want to teach to my daughter. And I just think that's good masculinity. That's being a father.
Yeah. Do you think we're sort of
It's
locked
simple as
out
that.
in like, for me, we're locked in survival. So if we're looking at survival, we're sort of locked in survival mentality, where we are being driven to be in survival mode, which means that we're based in fear and scarcity. We're locked in fight and flight.
Fight and flight, mate.
Yeah, we sort of, a lot of people are locked in that with a lack of awareness, that they're stuck in that sort of dynamic in life that they can't move out of, that we're always chasing the next thing, the money, you know, the materialism, whatever it is, thinking that when they get to this destination, if you like, that they're going to be happy and satisfied.
That's it, mate.
But at the same time, that's to the detriment of their own family. It can be. Like, men, like, we fall into it, Dean. Like, I mean, them phones, like, I don't want to blame technology here, by the way, because I like to think I'm a conscious man, that I have choice and free will over when I use my phone. But when I'm on the phone, sometimes I notice that I might just go on it because a message comes up and I have to get back to someone, and I find that I'm on the phone for half an hour, 45 minutes, when I only went on to check one message and send one message.
Yeah.
So there's something within it that's playing with the human anatomy, I think.
Literally had this conversation with me bird this morning. I was trying to feed the baby, but I was more engaged with my phone and WhatsApping people back about what I was doing with work today. And my bird's like, just get off your phone, put your phone down, and be present with your child. And I'm like, I'm glad she checks me when I do it, because it's so hard. And we're hooked on the dopamine, aren't we? We're always looking for quick, easy dopamine hits rather than the long, meaningful ones. And do you know what? Being a fighter, mate, I'm doing what I do. I have these like yo-yo cycles in my life, and fighting's a prime example of this. And I'm always trying to be conscious and better at it. But I kind of like, I have weeks where I eat really poorly. I eat lots of sugary, processed junk. And then I know I've got to get back into camp. So this week I've been eating garbage, you know, back on it Monday. and like it's like a big up and down. Like when I'm at a camp, I'm on my phone a lot more. I'm looking for those easy dope. I find myself drinking more coffee, but then it might take me 4 weeks, and then I rebuild my resilience to these little distractions like my phone and like eating sugar when I shouldn't, or having a slight chocolate bar or whatever. And then by the time it's fight week, I'm super resilient again. I'm super present. I'm shredded. I've got my discipline back. And then the fight happens and bang, it all goes back on that cycle.
Yeah.
So even someone who, I'm conscious of it, I'm always talking about it, but I still fall victim to all these traps that I'm aware of all the time. And it's a
Yeah.
constant battle,
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah. It's
Never
like
ends,
our
mate.
impulses, isn't it? We become very impulsive, and we just try things and we do things, and then we like sometimes you might
I'm
have
there
just
this
went
week.
and polished off 20 custard creams, mate, before you realise.
That's how I am this week.
Yeah.
I'm in that zone this week.
Yeah.
So it's tough, mate.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine it is, mate. And obviously my partner Carly, she obviously used to box,
Yeah.
mate, and stuff like that. And I've seen her, mate. She's won another fight, and then the next day, especially if it's been cancelled, you should see her eat. The next day she's
Well,
eating like mad, and she can go from like, I don't know, mate. She was probably 8.5 stone, and a day or two later, mate, she's 9.5 stone.
yeah, no, it's mad, mate. I was 71 kg last week, about 75 now. So, mate, I'm 8 pound, 9 pound heavier in a week.
Yeah, yeah,
It's bonkers, mate.
yeah.
But
So,
you said something before, scarcity, and
mm,
it's that mindset. I started telling myself because I've had to diet for so long. Now I'm owed all this junk food, and again, that scarcity mindset, it's used against us in lots of different ways, mate. Soon as they say the petty's out, everyone's queuing up at the petty stations, causing more chaos, aren't they? Or fighting over bog roll,
I
as
know.
we see in the lockdown.
Yeah,
Um, so your mind plays tricks on you, mate. Like it's it's an amazing thing, but it's also very vulnerable to all these things that we're just
yeah,
bombarded with in society all day, every day.
yeah. I think that I mean, there's definitely been something happening. I think in the world, being like, there's been a big shift in people. There's a lot of people meditating. There's a lot of people doing inner work on themselves, and I think that's part of the collective ripple for me, that people are sort of starting to wake up and hopefully attune that they've got more choice than they think in how they're showing up in the world. And I sort of worded in a way, Dean, that when you're doing this type of work, I don't know how it lands with you, but it's like there's a global immune system, if you like. If every human was a cell, there's a global immune system being activated, because we know that there's a lot of things out of balance right now, and people are starting to gradually, and it might take a bit of time for it to happen. It may not happen in our lifetime that we get it back into balance, but with a lot of hope with me is that we will. That's sort of what my purpose is a lot about, being, is trying to help men understand their own emotions, understand their traumas, understand the purpose in life, how they've been brought into masculinity, and essentially go out there to be the man that they were born to be, and to be able to lead. Firstly, to be able to lead themselves. Because what we've got a lot in businesses, Dean, we've got a lot of men leading people who can't even lead themselves. They don't even know how to understand their own emotions. So they're locked in this like toxic survival mode, which we just spoke about, which is rooted in scarcity and fear. So the more we can get people to do some sort of inner work on themselves, I think every man should, because it allows them then to be not only a better man, but a better father to help the men and the women they're bringing into the world, and a better partner.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, mate. I think again, I agree. There is this big growing movement now of people becoming more aware of what they can do to make themselves more resilient and give themselves another angle in life. But there's still a lot of it not happening. I remember
Yeah.
someone explaining that immune cell to me. I think it was Tim Barnett, but when the pandemic sort of started, and he was like saying we're all just individual cells of a bigger organism, and
Mm.
you trying to alarm people to maybe whatever agenda's coming down the next. That's just an immune response from
Mm.
from the world itself. So yeah, definitely can see where that paradigm
Yeah. So
comes
let's
from, me.
let's lean into obviously your teenage years then, Dean, yeah? And then I know you used to box with Gemini. I've got a funny story I'll tell you about soon, when I went to a Gemini show. Like, I was actually about to get in the ring. I was fighting a lad from St. Aloysius. You might have been there. I was talking to Luke Willis about it last week, and he remembers this. So I had my head guard on, warmed up, obviously I used to box for Sidanki from North Mersey, and I was boxing a lad from St. Aloysius called Carl Donahue. And there was a fight that just happened, I think, with one of the stalkers. So they had boxed a lad from Gemini. Now, when they got out the ring, something kicked off. Like there was two, I don't know if the two fighters or there was two gangs of lads that just went at it, mate. The whole show got called off. I think one of the judges was fighting. I think it was in 2003 it was. So I was standing there in my head guard, obviously nervous as anything, ready to get in the ring for the fight. The other lad was in the other corner, ready to get in, mate, and the whole show just got called off. I don't know if you were there, mate, but it was just crazy.
So.
Never seen anything like it, mate. Yeah. But they're a really good club, Gemini, mate, to be honest. They are a good club. Yeah, the Army, yeah. So what I'd say, mate, is just talk us through your teenage years, Dean, and then bringing us to the point now, whether that be, you know, what experiences you've had coming into masculinity, which you've said about what happened with your dad, but then talk about the time when you were lost as well, Dean, and how you found a way maybe out of that, and then leading into obviously where you're at today.
Yeah, I think so. Combat sports definitely has always been an outlet for me. Obviously living in an environment where I felt like there was a bully in the environment, that made me always want to be. At some point, I wanted to be the guy who could wipe the bully's eye. So that's why I made it me purpose to be able to fight. I think that was my biggest driver. I want to be able to protect the people I loved or cared about, or even just people who were innocent and being wrongly picked on. And I was picked on by some of my best mates now, like, but I was picked on myself as a young kid. So I remember being scared of bullies and not being able to stand up for myself. So combat sports definitely give me that confidence. But at about 12, I stopped boxing. So between 12 and 19 was a time in my life where I was probably just engaging in antisocial behaviour, playing with recreational drugs, just getting up to mischief. And that's probably where I was lost. I actually started working as a glass collector in Slater's Bar when I was 14. I took a CV and saying I was 16. Me and my mate Liam Stacey, we got a job glass collecting as young lads. We used to go to Sunrise after work. You know, that was only in year 10 in school. I was going to Sunrise. So I grew up quite young. My ma kind of let me do what I want. We just blagged me off that I was doing something else because she was dead strict. So I grew up young, going to the 051 at 15, 16 and being out in town. And that's where I probably wanted this reputation of being an art case, which is probably what at that point was where I was lost. And that's those toxic paradigms you have because you sucked into the material world and being out and partying and chasing dopamine. And it's just, I look back and I wish I just knew what I know now then, because I would have led a totally different lifestyle. But finding MMA at 19, best thing that ever happened to me. I already had a good role model in my older brother, but it just put loads of different males around me who were maybe even closer to my age, more relatable. There's guys like Paul Sass, Jane McGuinness, I don't know if you know any of those names, but that I remember thinking like, I want to be them. Listen, I'm going to be them. Second class I went, I was like, I'm going to be a coach as well as the guy at the time was Jason Tan. I was thinking, is he getting paid to teach all the 40, 50 guys in this class how to fight? And I just knew straight away that was my purpose. I don't know. I'm fortunate that I walked in there and found me calling on my first day.
Yeah.
And then I think that was the journey. That's basically the start of me finding myself and finding my sense of purpose and finding me sense of morality and thinking about how I could leave a mark on the world. Like instead of thinking if I have all these material things in my life, at some point I'm going to be happy. Now I was thinking if I can have all these experiences and I can be someone that can have a positive impact on young people, then that's what's going to give me fulfillment and that's what's going to make me on my deathbed be proud of myself. So now I lead a life like that. You know, I'm probably got over 200 young people in my community. We have kids classes for kids as young as 2 and 3, the Ninja Cubs. That's all about developing fundamental movement skills, because physical literacy is a precursor for academic ability and social, success in life. And, kids who are more physically literate at 3, 4 years old go on to have more partners, more friends, do better in sports, obviously, but they also often do better in academia and other areas of their lives. So it's great to be able to provide a service to kids as young as 2 and 3. Got our Little Ninjas program.
Amazing.
Got that, that's again, it's probably, even though it's an MMA based jiu-jitsu based program. Ours is probably more based on fun. So there are other programs in the city where it's more about the kids competing at 5 and 6. That's not our sort of push. Ours is more about keeping them engaged, so that we're encouraging future participation.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, there are some kids who respond better to classes where it's all about competition, but our ethos is more, at that age, we want to develop a sense of community, and, I have the kids just chomping at the bit to be coming in because it's so fun. We've got a junior MMA program, that's like goes up to 14, and then a 15, 16. We've got, lots of, our gym is full of 15, 16, 17-year-old young people. A lot of them are now looking at joining the BTEC program we do, where they're getting the opportunity to train full time, become a coach, maybe become a judge, a referee. You can go on to university, study sports coaching, sport development, physio. So now I'm in a position where there's lads who 5, 6 years ago were 15, 16. They're now professional fighters, brown belts in jiu-jitsu, running these programs I'm talking about in the gym, making a real good living at 19, 20 years old, got a sense of purpose.
Brilliant.
They have to give back to the community. They're fighting on Bellator and, looking at being in the UFC soon.
Amazing.
So it's an amazing feeling for me to know that I've been a catalyst in creating this organization that can do so much work. We've done different bits of work in schools with self-defense. We created our own self-defense system. We actually called it the dad system, because if you're in trouble, who do you need? Your dad. And the reason we called it the dad system was it was about diffusing conflict, avoiding conflict, and then defending yourself during conflict. And that was a real age-appropriate system that we delivered to 5 and 6-year-olds. Schools loved it. We've done that citywide. That's just one example of some of the different projects we've done. We're just about to get more back into the community things again. We're currently renovating the gym we just got next door, so we're knocking into next door. The facility we've got is quite big already, you've seen, but now it's going to have a third extra space. So as much as we're striving to be a world-class mixed martial arts academy, and we're trying to create world-class athletes, we're actually also trying to have a real solid impact on the community and create like a conveyor belt, a continuum where we can bring them in at 2 years old or anywhere on that pyramid, and we can funnel them up to becoming an elite athlete one day. Or I'll give you an example of a couple of the young people that are on this path now. There's a young lad called Joe Gerard at Aspire. Joe's about 20. He's just gone traveling for 6 weeks, so he's abroad at the minute, but he leads our Ninja Cubs, our smaller group in the Little Ninjas. He doesn't want to be a fighter, but he's obviously, he's training mixed martial arts to be a coach. He's on the 2nd year of his degree, or he's just finished the 2nd year of the degree that I did, coaching development. And what a life he's going to have now. He's found a real good calling in life. The kids love him. He's great with the kids. He's earning real good money, 30 quid an hour. 25, 30 quid an hour. We're paying him about, 700, 800 quid as a young lad a month for all the classes he's doing for us. And to me, that just gives me so much satisfaction that we're able to provide those opportunities to the right young people. Another good example would be Liam McCracken. He's a big coach for the juniors. So's Marlon Jones. They're both real successful fighters, but they've also had the nous to complete a BTEC, get qualified in coaching. And they're just such good role models, mate, at 19, 20. And that's what I've got. The 15-year-olds can look up to them. And then we've got some outstanding 15-year-olds in the gym who the 12 and 13-year-olds can look up to. And the ninjas can look up at some of these outstanding 12, 13, 14-year-olds. We've got like Shay Williams and Regan Bellamy and Saskia, Sophie Bellis. We've got all these young fighters in the gym again who are still at school age, but they're also the best in the world. And the best in the UK. And then they're coming in and helping us with the kids' classes. Oh, mate, I get excited and high on life talking about it.
I can see your passion.
We love what we do, it's just...
well, you can create that like internal, like you said, mate, it's like a conveyor belt, but it's creating and like an internal community and ecosystem where as the kids are growing up, they're aspiring to be like the kids who are older than them. So they're always looking up, and then they will end up following a similar path because, like, you say monkey see, monkey do. If they're inspired by some of the lads, then they'll aspire, or some of the girls, they'll aspire to be like them. And that sort of breeds in what we're talking about, which is like healthy role models, initiation in the gyms, and something you spoke about, Dean, which, you know, I think so important in terms of young people. And I'm talking like, you know, children here, like at 2-3 years of age, is them having that social engagement where, okay, we can compete in a healthy way. There's nothing wrong with healthy competition. But at the same time, the first moment they go into school, it's immediately, for me, at a young age, it's conditioned into them. So they have to be good at this, or they have to be good at that. And if they're not, then they sort of lose a level of self-worth. That makes sense. And how much even, you know, doing a lot of work on myself, that's helped me navigate my own issues or problems that may arise with my own kids, that we make our love sometimes, it becomes conditional. And to young babies that are so close to just being born, immediately when they're brought into the world, we're telling them that if you're not doing well and you can't do your spelling and your reading straight away, then we start putting them in hierarchies. It's like a hierarchical system in school that they're doing young, you know, tests at such a young age sometimes. And with that, they're bringing an element of pressure, which for me, I always say, Dean, if a kid feels pressure when they're going into a test, it's never about the test. It's about what they're making that mean. If they fail a test, then they don't feel worthy. So it's not about the test. It's about the fact that they feel like a failure if they don't succeed. And where does that come from? And I'm not actually saying that we need to get rid of, you know, failing in some way, Dean, can be a catalyst for change as well. So I'm not denying that aspect of what I'm talking about in a competitive nature. But I feel like the way in which children are brought into the system, if you like, absolutely needs to be adapted and changed.
Yeah, again, mate, all by design. The school system was funded by the banking dynasties who fund all this other quite nasty stuff, and it was not invented to educate the plebs. It was invented to create a nation of workers and not thinkers. So they realised, hang on, if we can get them into schools, we can prepare them for this factory industrial model that we're going to be unleashing on them very soon. So part of the industrialization process was the schooling system and getting kids to all wear the same uniform, stand in a line, put their hand up, conform, you know, to that system you're talking about, the hierarchical system, sit at a desk for 7 hours a day, be rewarded for regurgitating information rather than, you know, becoming problem solvers. Giving them a load of subjects and indoctrinating them rather than teaching them relevant life skills. So, you know, I can explain, I can now, but prior to me being able to grow my own food, I could explain to you in detail how photosynthesis works, but I was a complete novice at growing a spud, which could actually save me one day. So I think, again, that's all by design with the school system, mate. I'm going to be honest, I'm probably leaning more towards homeschooling my daughter when it's time to go to school. For all those reasons, I don't want her to feel all those pressures to compete with all the other kids in the class and get all these, you know, have all this sometimes useless information. I don't use. This is not me attacking education. I just think education should be precision education. It should be targeted to the child's, you know, preferences, the learning preferences, the things that they enjoy doing. If you look at like a bee colony or an ant colony, you know, they have different roles within the society, and we're more like them societies, aren't we? And we need roles in our society with animals, mate. Yeah. So I think the schooling system could do so much more for our kids if it empowered them with skills rather than knowledge. So, you know, if my daughter to go to school, she might actually learn to play an instrument. She might learn a language. Well, she probably will learn a language. She'll be being outside, growing food. You know, she might learn some other practical skills. She still do maths, English, and science because they're all so useful and you need them. But, you know, I could probably leave her with a lot more meaningful, you know, vocations by homeschooling her. That's my belief system on it. And then she won't be someone who's just thinking she needs to go out and get a job and work and have a work till she's ready to retire, then just die and do it all again. She might be someone who, you know, knows what I know now at 14 instead of having to go through, you know. So for me, it's not about giving her what I never had. You know, it's about showing her or teaching her what I didn't know. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully
I see
she
the
can have a better
transition
perspective.
in young people, mate. Like there's a transition, like my lad's 16 now. Now the transition in him from when he left primary school to year 7, and I'm talking 6 months to a year, the amount that I thought he changed from being a happy kid that had just left primary school to going into a sort of, for me, felt like it's sit down, shut up, do as you're told, and you're not here to have fun, you're here to learn. There's a lack of conscious awareness of how I think we're schooling and educating kids, that teaching needs to be done in a way that is conscious, that we need to be learning kids. Okay, there might be, and I understand schools are under a lot of pressure, Dean, from Ofsted and stuff like that. They're under pressure, teachers are under pressure, there's not enough teachers, the classrooms are overcrowded, which again, is part of a system that for me is sort of not doing enough. But how can we send the kid to school and say, you're not here to have fun, you're here to work and you're here to learn? Now, you learn the most, and you would know this when you're doing your, any MMA, any fighting, you learn the most when you like the person you're learning off and you like what you're doing. Yeah,
100%.
It's something that you love to do. Now, we're sending kids into school. Is it normal for me, for a child who is 5 years of age, to sit there, shut up and do as he's told? That to me is not normal conditions. We should be learning through play. Now, these kids are being told to shut up and sit down and be quiet. And then because they can't do that, they're getting diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah,
or they're saying that they've got, but it's
medicated,
to not sit
medicating
still.
them because it's like trying to stick a triangle through a hole, a circle hole, mate. It's like the system doesn't work for some of these kids, so we have to create labels and medicate them and put it back on them. Do you know what I mean? That they can't just sit there for 8 hours and regurgitate all day and shut up.
Yeah.
So,
but do you think though, something I was keen to press you on, Dean, was just, some of the views that you have, that you're quite open about what they are.
Yeah.
Like, eyesight is always, we spoke it before about yin and yang, but for me, the balance lies in the middle. Do you think sometimes some of the news and the things that we're reading and the media we're taking in, that mightn't be mainstream stuff? Do you think sometimes like you can sway too far the other way? Do you think, there needs to be an element of balancing? Because there's a lot of people, there is a lot of fake news that goes on, and I'm always keen to sit in the middle to say, okay, I'll take some bits of what the mainstream say and I'll take it, and then I'll take some parts of whatever news that's not mainstream, and I'll sort of, form my own belief systems, which for me are forever changing every day. If I'm interested in one thing, my beliefs can change from one moment to the next if I'm liking the information and it resonates with me. Like, how do you think that's maybe shaped your own belief systems of how you see the world?
Well, I remember, obviously, if you were looking at my social media story prior to the pandemic starting, like 2019, it was pretty dark. And then obviously during the pandemic, I was sharing a lot of information that you would say is dark information, and could have a negative impact on some people's mental health when they're seeing it, or just how people feel about the world. But that was never my intention. I think there's a balance, mate. I think you can be toxically positive. I have people in my social network saying, stop posting all that info. That's not helping no one. And I'm like, no, it is. I'm getting messages all day, every day saying, fucking hell, glad I've seen what you've put up there. Now I'm informed, and now I'm not going to take such and such a thing. And I know people who took such and such a thing aren't with us anymore because they took such and such a thing. So to me, that might have been dark, but there was people wanting that information. Then the next person might be sharing all stuff about get out there, meditate, make sure you're getting sun today. And I just think that's how they work in the world, and I work a different way. Now, if you come and see me working with my actual physical world, it's all positive. I don't do any, my job is all the good stuff. It's getting everyone to be active. Like it's hands-on, working with people, face to face, young people. And that's what I do all day. So when I was using my social media to share all this information that is dark, I can see how some people were thinking, fucking hell, Dean's he's just pure negative. He just sees the bad in everything. And I'm like, no, I'm not. That's not what I'm trying to be. I'm just trying to be the guy who's saying, if you want this information here, I'm going to shed some light on it. Do what you need to do with it.
But it's like seeing the dark as opposed to and ignoring the fact that something's happening, and something negative's happening, but you turn your back to it. And you're like, oh, well, if I'm not looking at it, it's not happening. But it's like, no matter whether you're looking at it or not, there's something happening unconsciously that you're not seeing. And I always think that the more of the dark we see, the more we can make it conscious, the more you can integrate what's happening. Yeah, so it doesn't happen in the same way. So we get to make a different choice next time if something happens. If a pandemic happened again, how could we act differently and respond differently? Yeah.
Well, it's quite scary, mate, because there's something, like, I've took a big step back from some of these issues we're talking about, but I do stay in the loop. And right now they're putting something through called the Pandemic Accord, right? And it's going to be the World Health Organization is going to have complete control of how we respond to health threats. And any nation states that sign up is going to sign their sovereignty over. So when there's another pandemic, an unelected group of bureaucrats funded by Big Pharma and Bill Gates are literally going to be able to decide if we can go to work or not. No longer our own politicians who we've elected. They're going to sign away our rights to sovereignty. That's happening now. They're drafting it up. Go and watch it on YouTube. The World Health Organization. Like, if you know what you're looking for, it's pretty like. So that's all happening now. That's why you're hearing all about Philip Schofield and all that other stuff. So I think, like, you've got to do the inner work and you've got to be out there trying to stay healthy and do all this other stuff. But you've got to educate yourself as well, because there's these agendas to deprive you of your health and all these other your freedoms and your ability to live in abundance.
Yeah,
they're still going on. They're still multi-billion-dollar agendas, and you know, if you're not out there and with an open mind and being happy to like, you know, some people say, "Oh, don't want to know, Dean. Like, I don't want to know. There's nothing I can do about it." But there is. You've got knowledge. You're empowered with knowledge. The reason they lie to you about stuff is because it disempowers you. So when you're armed with the truth, you're empowered.
Yeah.
So
do you think if you get lost, because obviously I think we all know people, Dean, like, who absolutely, you know, this whole thing has a negative effect on them. Like, okay, they're doing it with the right intentions, but, you know, I've got a couple of friends that are completely lost, that they took themselves away from society, they cut themselves off, and they lose themselves to, you know, I'm not saying any side of it's right or wrong here, Dean, but they can lose themselves to, like, you know, I was hearing stuff like on is it Biden, Joe Biden? Like, he made to 10 videos of like his face peeling off, and Donald Trump's still going to win the election, and all these things getting said now, whether he is or he isn't, you know, I don't know. I don't look into it that deeply, but they're losing themselves maybe to a part of, like, maybe social media, or, you know, you could say, is it fake news or is it just another theory? I don't know. But do you think there's an element of that can happen? Like, with people?
Do you know what I would say it is, right? I'd say obviously there are people who go too far down the rabbit hole, but I just think that's up to them. Like, I have a thirst for this information. Like, me bird couldn't watch the stuff I watch because it drains her. She said, "I'll get that off." Doesn't drain me. I just say it's the truth to me isn't positive or negative. It's just the truth. So I'm seeking the truth. However, I feel like what does happen is we're like this savior idea that, like, it's called saviorism. So you've got, like, the people who believe that the narrative, they think government and science is going to save them. And then equally, you get people who think someone like me is going to save them. People start messaging me saying, "Oh, Dean, so I've got to have such and such thing here. What shall I say?" It's like, what are you asking me for? Like, I've got my views. What's your view? Like, I don't want to just be giving you your, like, why are you asking me like I'm right? Where's your own sense of discernment? Why are you so sure I've got it right? And if you need to ask me what you should be saying, then you need to go and do more homework on it. So that's something I'd say is a negative about, like, being in this domain I'm in, is like you can end up getting lost and going, "Oh no, it's not the government who's going to save me. It's this conspiracy theorist here. He's got all the answers." Or so there's people now preying on people like that from the truth movement, if you want to call it that. So I think the biggest issue is people losing discernment. Like, that's so big today. Like, you'll see, like, again, something I love watching stuff now is stuff about gender ideology. You'll see, like, someone on a university campus interviewing people going like, "So how many genders are there?" And they'll be like, "I don't know, I'm not a biologist." And it's like, what? Why do you need to be a biologist to have an opinion on that? Or why do you need to be a doctor to know what you're injecting yourself with. You don't. You've got your own brain, and there's not someone smarter than you who's got all the answers all the time. Like, what's right for you might be different to what's right for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned when I first started getting into this truth movement, is what I'll call it, was I was at a point where I believed anything that counted the narrative. And now I know there's actually a lot of information out there put out by the same people who are giving you a false narrative. They also control the opposite side of the narrative. So you've got to be very careful about how you process information.
Yeah.
Don't just say, oh, news from the BBC is bad or good, and news from YouTube's bad or good. There's lies and there's facts on both of them, and it's all about you having your own sense of discernment to work out what information is going to be relevant to you.
That's just muted there. Sorry, Dean.
Sorry, I just muted. I think so. Yeah, just about you know, go and look for information and what you do with it. How do you actually benefit from how, and how does it serve you?
Yeah. Yeah, and I suppose, mate, you know, there's always truth on both sides, and there's always also a lot of falseness on both sides, and there's a lot of false information. Now, when I try to step away from them, you know, even the word like conspiracy theory, I just think there's other theories. You know, there's more than one way to get to the top, more than one way to climb a mountain. You know, and people actually being in tune with their own intuition, Dean, with knowing actually what resonates with them and what feels right. Because I think, you know, we all know, if we're that attuned to ourselves, what actually feels right in the moment for us. Like, does it feel right that, you know, you send your kids to school? Do you feel the school system's right? Do you think working 50 hours each and not seeing your partner or your kids is right? Like, because if it's not, then we have, you know, a sovereignty to be able to make change. You just turned on your side.
Sorry.
You're back. It's all good. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, it's building that, like you say, there's a discernment, but there's being in touch with your own intuition and trusting in your own sovereignty to make a decision and to lead yourself. So I suppose that ties in a lot in what you're trying to create with Aspire, and also in terms of what I'm trying to create, you know, what I'm doing with men, and what also Carly's doing with women. It's trying to create people to, you know, tap into their own knowing and to their own sovereignty to lead their own lives, Dean, without being told, you know, what to do and we have to do this. And, you know, when we're touching also on gender, like for me, it's something, again, like, if you want to call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, to me, Dean, say what you want. Like, that does not bother me. If you want to say that you're non-binary, you're trans, you're this, you're that, like, for me personally, you know, I believe, and it's a little bit far out there, what I'll say is, you know, on the deepest level, mate, you're good at with energy, or, you know, you've got your soul or your spirit, so it doesn't really matter. To me, if you want to say this is what I am and you want to present yourself in a certain way or format, then that's your choice. And I'm not going to objectify against that, because for me, that then creates more separation. And that's not what I want to create more inclusion rather than exclusion of people.
Oh, so do I, mate. I mean, just to make it clear, I've got no issues with people being non-binary or trans either. I've just got an issue with it being promoted to young kids who are impressionable, and then giving them irreversible medical procedures, so they can't pick the bedtime, but they can get a double mastectomy. And I believe that's going to be a big thing in the future, in the next 5 years. Kids using puberty blockers, it's going to be like 50% of kids. I'm telling you, it's going to be a massive, maybe not 50, but it's going to be big thing that they're going to promote.
So like, where do you see it, you know, because I am fascinated, like, I mean, first time I heard you, mate, fascinated. I've met you, you know, at different things that have been happening in the city before, and we've had conversations. Like, I'm fascinated to know where you think things will go in the next 3 to 5 years. What do you think's gonna, you know, what's gonna be happening in the world, and what are your views?
It's one of them things, mate, right? A lot of the stuff that I spout is not my opinion. Like, I knew, if you watch my 2019 Perspectives podcast, that was meant to be an MMA podcast. The guys were like, why is he just talking about vaccines? But I went on there and I said, look, next year, you're going to need a vaccine to travel. That's a random thing for someone to make a statement prior to that pandemic happening. You must have inside info, not inside info, you must have information to make that statement. Now, I weren't the only person making that statement. It's all well documented by these institutions like the UN, like the World Health Organization. They've got it in black and white, and I keep up to date with what they're doing. So the big agendas at the minute, mate, I believe there's going to be a financial crash 100%, because they want to bring in a new digital currency. That's going to tie in with a digital identity. That's going to tie in with this digital health passport. Now you're going to be hearing a lot more digital health, whatever the fuck that is. That's going to be huge in the next 3 years. So where we're going, mate, we're going towards a society whose financial system is programmable and traceable. That's a central bank digital currency. They're going to link that to your digital identity. They're going to attach carbon credits to it. They're going to try and lock us into 15-minute cities where we need a permit to leave the 15-minute zone if we do it more than so many times a year.
Why would they do that?
To combat climate change, which I also don't believe is a crisis. The climate's always changing, and where it is changing drastically, it's being engineered again through geoengineering programs, things that are well documented. So they're going to say you can save the planet by not leaving your 15-minute city. So what they're going to try and do is reduce traffic emissions, stop you driving to Manchester because everything you need is in your 15-minute zone. And then they can stop this climate emergency and save the world. But obviously it's got nothing to do with that. It's just another manufactured crisis to steal more of your freedom. And to
What's
make
it all about then? Is it about
control?
freedom?
Just about control. Just about control.
Why would the people, though, do you think, in the world do that? Like whoever's running and the powers that be that are operating, why would they run a system that is designed to hurt people, if you like, and to affect people?
Probably it's hard for me to understand. Why would Joseph Fritzl lock his daughter in his own basement and bear children to her?
Yeah.
I'll never be able to answer that question, mate, but it's still happening.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So the why, who knows? Why the evil people do evil things? I can't tell you because I'm not an evil person. But all the stuff, everything I've just said is well documented. And you can sit and listen to the people who are in the most powerful positions explaining that that's what they're going to do. And they're going to do it soon.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great for you. So, not like the fact that we're going to have a central bank digital currency, carbon credits, a digital identity, all merged together with facial recognition and 15-minute cities. Just like I could tell you in 2019 that you're going to need a vaccine in 2020, I can tell you confidently that all those things are coming soon.
Yeah.
And
then,
the whole plan.
Where would you say beyond that then? Okay, so beyond that, we've got to a point now. All these things are coming in the next 3 to 5 years. What do you think then? Like what's all this leading to, if you like?
It's just leading to control. For the people in power want a one world government, a one world religion. They want a one world control system, and that's what this is. It's a control matrix, and it's just getting tighter. The noose is getting tighter on society all the time. They believe we are useless eaters, and it's time to have a mass cull and establish more control over us using technology as a means to control us. And as much as that's an alarming, my mind's out, like, you could say I'm just being negative again and putting all this out there to the world, but I'm just trying to be realistic, and that's why I'm trying to think about how I can lead a life that's free from all this control. And I think we can do it. I think we can do it, but it's small and local. And that's why I really think community projects need to come back in a big way to save us from being disconnected by this takeover, this technocratic takeover. They're calling it the fourth industrial revolution. And, people like Klaus Schwab, who talk, the World Economic Forum, they talk about how they're going to hack us and how we're going to have brain implants and how they're going to be able to control us remotely. Scary listening to these people have these conversations, but they're literally nonchalant about it because most people don't care. And they know they just need every time. It's called the Hegelian dialect. They just need a crisis. Do you know what I mean? What came first, the COVID vaccine or the pandemic? And I think the pandemic was manufactured to create a need for this pharmaceutical product. I'm not going to say what I think the agenda is because who truly knows, but I can certainly make those claims that I've just made with complete confidence.
Yeah. And do you think there's another pandemic in the pipeline, Dean, in the next few years?
I do believe there is another pandemic around 2025. I imagine it'll take place. And all that'll be is to create the narrative so that they can finally press the button on the things I've just talked about, the global digital health passport and those type of vaccine passport systems that I was telling people, warning people about in 2018, 2017. You know, I was talking about these issues, and when 2020 came around, that was where we went, oh, hang on, maybe this Dean knows a little bit about the stuff he's talking about.
Yeah.
So there you go, mate. It's not all doom and gloom. I'm not saying that that's all going to come to fruition. Maybe it can be stopped, but the biggest threat to stopping it to them is information and knowledge, which is why my Instagram account was censored, because I was actually doing the agenda harm. I actually had a good reach. I was actually stopping thousands of people from complying with a toxic agenda. And I have no regrets about that. In fact, I'm glad I did what I did, and you know, I'd like to think I've had a positive impact on people's health because of it. And where maybe I've had a negative impact on people's health mentally because I've shared so much dark info, but maybe I've genuinely saved lives from physical trauma where people might have injected themselves with something that has the potential to do serious harm.
Yeah, and I think, Dean, like, if people want to have a vaccine, like my stance is, if people want to go and have a vaccine, or they want to go and do whatever, don't, you know, you've got your own body, it's up to you, you've got autonomy of your own body. Like, it's when it comes into forcing people to do certain things. Now, for me, I know how healthy I am, and I know that I was doing, before I would go and take something, unless I felt unhealthy and I needed it, then I would be ticking other boxes before I jumped at medication. So I remember, you know, all this kicking off, if you like, and something that really stands out to me is that there was never any talk of people doing breath work to boost your lung capacity. You know, get out there and exercise, doing all these different things that can make sure you're healthy, eating healthy foods. Give us diet, you know, give us a diet. What do we need to be eating to fight this off? What, you know, what supplements can we be taking right now? There was never any of that. And sort of, it was always like, if you're not wearing a mask, if you like, and you're not having a vaccine, then there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, so stop seeing all your family and your loved ones. Cease to have contact with them. Stay indoors. Put a dirty arm mask over your face and inject yourself with this untested, brand new thing. It's absolutely backwards when you think of it like that, mate. Isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So you know, it's. I think for me, mate, there's something in medical ethics called informed consent. So where I like, it's easy saying if people want to take it, let them take it. But I feel for people who are taking it who aren't informed. So they go, no, I want to have it because it's stopping me getting COVID. Well, hang on. No, they just said, oh, you'll probably still get COVID. Oh, well, it's stopping me spreading it. Oh, no, it's not. You still spread it. Oh, it's going to reduce me chances of dying. Oh, no, all the people who've taken the jab have an increased chance of all-cause mortality. You look now,
yeah,
people dying every week, and the main cause no cause of death. When's that ever been a thing? Listen, without going too deep into it, you know, I just think, you know, hopefully more and more people are waking up and taking back control of their health, their lives, how they raise the children. Because the more we empower ourselves locally and we get back to developing community, common unity, then that's how we save ourselves from this centralized technocratic agenda of control.
Yeah.
And that's
And it's
probably
like,
a strong close.
No, I love it, mate, because, you know, the way I see it, you know, if I'm working with people, Dean, like, for me, we can't build a building, if you like, without strong foundations. Of the people that we are, the people at the foundations of society, we're the ones that hold that. We're the foundations of society. So the more of us that we help, that become stronger, if you like. Sort of like a down, you know, a bottom-up approach, I call it. So in, like, you know, the field of work I operate in, it's a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach. Because sometimes in the work I do, Dean, we're trying to fix people and mental health using the mind. And within the NHS and within, you know, all these different systems that we've got that are failing people's mental health, by the way, they don't really talk about a somatic approach to dealing with the mind, because different things like trauma, emotions, anything that has happened in our life is stored within your nervous system and within your body. as information. It's downloaded as information within your system, but yet we're only trying to deal with it at the level of the mind. So the more we can actually get to the body, work with the body, release our different emotions, if you like, which I would say needs to happen on a societal level. Yeah, because the individual and society for me is interconnected. If someone's struggling, then we're all struggling. If you know, certain people, if you've got a mental health epidemic, then that's going to affect everyone. And you know, I like to say, Dean, that you know, if me and you are nurturing, you know, you grow food, Dean. Yeah, if you're creating an environment, you know, to grow tomatoes, and them tomatoes aren't growing right, whose fault is it? Is it the tomatoes' fault, or is it the person creating the environment?
My
Yeah.
fault,
So if we're creating systems, clearly there's something happening within the system if so many of us are struggling. So therefore, if we address the system, we create change and we start to nurture human beings. Yeah, to live as human beings, not as robots, which sometimes it feels like is being pushed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big close, isn't it?
It is. No, I 100% agree, mate. It is. We need to get back to thinking about systems that serve us and help us thrive and live in abundance. And often those will be the opposite.
Yeah.
Don't know why that keeps moving. Those will be the opposite things to what the corporate, you know, mainstream's promoting.
Yeah.
So
what I'll do, Dean, what I'd like to do
go.
now, mate, I want to ask
I've
you some
lost you
quick
there,
questions.
mate.
You still there?
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Can I hear you?
Why have I lost you? I've lost you, Paul.
I'm still here, mate.
You're back. You're back.
Back, good stuff.
Can hear you now. Sorry.
Right, mate. So I just want to finish with some quick fire questions, Dean, okay? So you just answer them quickly and then, mate, we're going to wrap up, okay? So first question, mate, would be what advice would you give to your younger self?
Always trust your own gut and always be your own, you know, your own ministry of truth. You know what I mean? That's what I'd tell me younger self.
Next question is, what are your dreams and ambitions over the next 12 months?
12 months, I want to become a world title holder on Hexagon MMA.
Muted again there, mate. Sorry.
I want to be a world champion for Hexagon MMA, maybe drop down a weight class, pick up 2 world titles before the year's out. And in 2024, I want to, you know, be the biggest show in the world. Obviously, I've expanded my business. We've opened a new site on the Whittle. So I just want to keep growing what I'm doing, mate. And then my 5-year plan is to live on a homestead and be with 3 or 4 of the families and living in a community. So that's my dream. I was to sort of get off grid and be self-sufficient as much as I can. And obviously just maintain the lifestyle I've got because I absolutely love my lifestyle. I feel blessed every day.
Yeah, brilliant. One more, mate. This is a bit of a deep one. Every time I ask it, people are like, oof, that's deep. But you're a deep fella, Dean, so you've got it.
I'm very deep.
Okay. So what I'd ask you, mate, is what does it mean for you to be a man?
So it means like I measure my success as a male by what I can do for people who can't do nothing for me. That's what it means. It means to be giving myself away to people who can't, you know, who can't give me nothing back. And I do a lot of that stuff and it makes me feel massive about myself. The best boost to myself, self-esteem always comes from doing stuff for other people, more so than doing stuff for myself. So yeah, that's manhood. That's manhood. Being a pillar in a community. That's being a man.
Yeah, great answer, Dean. Thank you, mate. Is there anything final you'd like to share before we wrap up?
No, I'd just love to say, mate, I've proper enjoyed this conversation. I've really enjoyed it, mate. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Dean, I'd love to get you back on again, mate, and we could definitely like dedicate one whole episode, mate, to just talking about what's happening in the world, and we'll just leave the MMA aside, and then we could do another one just talking about the MMA.
Yeah, mate, I'm always up for these conversations. I love talking about deep subjects. I don't like talking about what's on Netflix, the footy, or any of that shite. I like talking about what's real in the world, what's impacting us and what's impacting our children. So me and you are very, very similar in that sense, mate.
Brilliant. Dean, honestly, mate,
Nice
it's
one.
been an absolute pleasure, okay?
Cheers, Paul. Have a
This
good
this
day,
should be
lad.
out in 2 weeks, mate. So about
Lovely.
a week or two, we'll get it out there and I'll send it over
Nice
to you,
one.
okay?
Cheers,
Nice one for
Paul.
your
Thank
time,
you.
Dean. Thank you,
Cheers,
mate.
mate. See
Ta-ra,
you
mate.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Ta-ra, lad.